Harold Morrison was watering his tomato plants when the sky turned purple. At 73 years old, he had seen many strange things in his lifetime, but nothing quite like this. The retired Marine sergeant looked up from his garden hose, squinting through his bifocals at the swirling colors above his small farmhouse in rural Kansas. The air began to hum with an electric charge that made the hair on his arms stand up. Harold's old dog Buster started whining and ran toward the house, tail tucked between his legs. Smart dog, Harold thought, but he didn't move. After 3 tours in Vietnam and 40 years of farming, not much scared him anymore. A massive shadow fell across his property as something enormous descended from the purple sky. The craft was unlike anything Harold had ever seen, even in science fiction movies. It was sleek and silver, about the size of a football field with no visible engines or wings. It hovered silently above his barn, defying everything he knew about physics. Harold calmly turned off his garden hose and set it down. He walked into his house, past Buster, who was hiding under the kitchen table, and retrieved his old hunting rifle from the gun cabinet. Not that he expected it would do much good against something that advanced, but old habits died hard. When he stepped back outside, beings were already emerging from the craft. They descended on beams of soft blue light, their forms becoming clearer as they approached the ground. Harold had to admit, they looked exactly like the little green men from every alien movie he'd ever seen, except they weren't green. They were pale gray with large black eyes, thin limbs, and oversized heads. One of them, slightly taller than the others, approached Harold with what seemed like confidence. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in Harold's mind rather than through his ears. Human designation, Harold Morrison. You will come with us for examination and cataloging. Resistance is futile. Harold chuckled, a dry sound that made the alien tilt its head in what might have been confusion. Well, that's a new one. Most folks around here just ask politely when they want something. The alien's large black eyes seemed to focus more intently on Harold. You do not show fear. This is unexpected. Most of your species exhibit terror and attempt to flee when first contact occurs. Son, Harold said, shifting his rifle to a more comfortable position. I've been shot at by people who were a lot scarier than you. Plus, I'm 73 years old. At my age, dying isn't the worst thing that could happen to me. Living in a nursing home is. Several more aliens had formed a semicircle around Harold, but they maintained their distance. Their leader continued the mental conversation. You are elderly by human standards. Our research indicates your species becomes less capable with age. Why do you not submit? Harold looked around at the group of aliens, noting their thin builds and seemingly fragile appearance. Let me ask you something, and I want an honest answer. Are you folks predators? The question seemed to genuinely puzzle the alien leader. Define predators in this context. Do you hunt other creatures for sport? Do you enjoy causing pain? Do you take things just because you can? Harold's grip on his rifle tightened slightly. We are scientists. We collect specimens for study. We catalog species and their capabilities. We do not derive pleasure from suffering, nor do we hunt for recreational purposes. Harold nodded slowly. All right then. That's something, I suppose. But here's the thing about humans you might not have figured out yet. We don't much like being collected or cataloged like butterflies in a jar. The alien leader exchanged what appeared to be rapid mental communication with the others. After a moment, it turned back to Harold. Your cooperation would make the process more efficient. We require biological samples and behavioral analysis. In return, we offer advanced medical treatment that could extend your lifespan significantly. And if I refuse, then we will take what we need by force. Your resistance would be noted, but ultimately meaningless. Harold was quiet for a long moment, looking up at the massive ship hovering above his property. He thought about his late wife, Margaret, who had passed away 2 years ago. He thought about his children who lived in distant cities and called maybe once a month. He thought about his empty house and his routine of tending a garden and watching old war movies. You know what? Harold said finally. I've been feeling pretty useless lately. Maybe it's time for one last adventure. The alien leader's head tilted again. You agree to come willingly? I agree to come. But not willingly. There's a difference. Harold slung his rifle over his shoulder. And I'm bringing this with me. Weapons are not permitted aboard our vessel. Harold smiled, and something in that expression made several of the aliens take a step backward. Son, I survived the Tet Offensive, raised 4 kids, and buried the love of my life. This old rifle has been with me through most of it. Where I go, it goes. That's non-negotiable. The aliens conferred again, their mental communication creating a strange buzzing sensation in Harold's head. Finally, their leader spoke. Very well. You may retain your primitive weapon. It poses no threat to our technology. We'll see about that, Harold muttered under his breath. As the blue beam of light enveloped him and began lifting him toward the ship, Harold looked down at his small farm, his garden, and Buster, who had finally emerged from under the table and was barking frantically at the sky. He wondered if he'd ever see any of it again. The inside of the alien ship was as strange as its exterior. The walls seemed to be made of some kind of living metal that pulsed with soft light. The floors were smooth and seamless, and there was no obvious source of gravity. Yet Harold's feet remained firmly planted on the ground. As they led him through winding corridors, Harold noticed other beings in what appeared to be containment cells. Some looked human, others were clearly from different worlds entirely. They all had one thing in common: they looked defeated. How many species have you catalogued? Harold asked. 1,743, including several subspecies variants. And how many of them put up a fight? The alien leader paused in its walking. Define put up a fight. Harold's smile returned, and this time it was definitely not friendly. Oh, you'll find out soon enough. The examination room looked like something from a medical facility, designed by someone who had never actually seen a medical facility. Strange instruments hung from the ceiling on mechanical arms, and the walls were covered with displays showing incomprehensible data patterns. Harold was placed on a table that adjusted itself to his body shape without any visible controls. Remove your clothing, the alien leader commanded mentally. How about we start with names first? Harold replied aloud, deliberately speaking rather than thinking his response. I'm Harold Morrison, United States Marine Corps, retired. What do I call you? The alien seemed frustrated by Harold's refusal to communicate telepathically. Designation is irrelevant. I am Research Commander of Survey Vessel 7742. That's a mouthful. I'll call you Commander Gray. Harold made no move to undress. Now about these examinations. What exactly are you planning to do? Standard biological assessment. Tissue samples, genetic mapping, neural activity scanning, stress response testing. Stress response testing? Harold raised an eyebrow. That doesn't sound particularly pleasant. Subjects are exposed to various stimuli to measure psychological and physiological reactions. Fear responses, pain tolerance, survival instincts. Harold shifted on the table, his rifle still slung across his back. And what have you learned from the other humans you've tested? Commander Gray's large black eyes seemed to brighten slightly. Human subjects exhibit predictable responses. High fear levels, rapid psychological breakdown under stress, limited physical capabilities compared to their own historical records. Historical records? We have observed your species for 300 Earth years. Your ancestors showed greater resilience and combat effectiveness. Current specimens appear significantly weakened. Harold laughed, a sound that echoed strangely in the sterile room. Well, Commander Gray, I think you might have been studying the wrong humans. Explain. Most of the folks you've probably been picking up are what we call civilians. People who've lived comfortable lives, never had to fight for anything real. They're not weak, mind you, just unprepared. Harold sat up on the examination table. But you picked up the wrong old man today. Several more aliens entered the room, carrying various instruments that hummed with energy. Commander Gray gestured to them mentally, and they began setting up equipment around Harold's table. Your age indicates declining physical capabilities. Your cooperation will minimize discomfort during the procedures. You keep talking about my age like it's a disadvantage, Harold said, watching the aliens prepare their instruments. Tell me something, Commander.
How old are you?
I have existed for 47 cycles. And how long is a cycle? Approximately 2 of your Earth years. Harold did the math quickly. So you're about 94 years old by human standards, give or take. Ancient by our measures, yet you seem pretty spry. Maybe age works differently for your species. We do not experience physical degradation as humans do. Our bodies are designed for longevity. That's where you're wrong about humans, Harold said, sliding off the examination table and standing to his full height. At 6 feet tall, he towered over the aliens. You see, there's something your research probably missed. Humans don't just get older. The ones who survive long enough get harder. The aliens were clearly unprepared for Harold to move freely around the room. Several of them stepped back. their large eyes tracking his movements nervously. "Return to the examination platform," Commander Gray ordered. "I don't think so." Harold unslung his rifle and held it casually, not pointing it at anyone but making its presence known. "See, I've been thinking about what you said. About humans being weaker than they used to be. And you might be right about some folks, but you made one critical error in your research." "What error?" "You assumed that because some humans have gotten soft, all humans have gotten soft. But we've been fighting wars for thousands of years, Commander. We've been predators longer than we've been prey, and some of us never forgot how to hunt." Harold began walking around the room, examining the alien equipment with the casual interest of someone browsing a hardware store. The aliens followed his movements but seemed uncertain how to respond. "This is fascinating technology," Harold said, stopping next to a device that was clearly meant to restrain subjects. "Very advanced. But you know what I notice about all of it? Elaborate. It's all designed for subjects who want to cooperate or who are too scared to resist effectively. Your whole setup assumes compliance." Harold touched one of the restraint mechanisms and it activated, then immediately released. "Even your containment systems are more like guidelines than actual barriers." Commander Gray's mental voice carried what might have been irritation. "Our technology is sufficient to contain any biological entity we have encountered." "Well, that's the thing about humans," Harold said, turning to face the group of aliens. "We specialize in doing things that shouldn't be possible." Without warning, Harold moved. Despite his age, decades of military training and farm work had kept him in better shape than most men half his age. He grabbed one of the examination instruments and hurled it at the wall display, causing sparks to fly and alarms to sound throughout the ship. The aliens scattered, clearly not programmed for this kind of response. Commander Gray backed toward what appeared to be a control panel. "Security protocols activated. Subject will be subdued." "Good luck with that," Harold said, shouldering his rifle. "Now I have a few questions, and I expect honest answers. First question, where are the other humans you've taken?" "Information restricted." Harold fired a single shot into the ceiling. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space, and several aliens dropped to the floor, covering their large ears. The bullet punched through whatever material the ship was made of as if it were paper. "Let me rephrase that," Harold said, working the bolt action on his rifle. "Where are the other humans?" Commander Gray's mental voice was now tinged with something that might have been fear. "Containment level 7. Sections 12 through 18. How many?" 43 specimens from your species. Various ages and genetic backgrounds. "And how many of them are still alive?" There was a pause. 31 remain functional." Harold's expression darkened. "Functional? You mean alive? What happened to the other 12? Some subjects did not survive the examination procedures. Others experienced terminal psychological breakdown. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Harold's voice was quiet, controlled, but carried an edge that made even the aliens sense danger. "You killed 12 people. They were specimens. Their deaths provided valuable data about human limitations." Harold raised his rifle, pointing it directly at Commander Gray. "Commander, I think it's time you learned something about human limitations. Specifically how we react when someone hurts our people." The alarms continued to wail throughout the ship as Harold kept his rifle trained on Commander Gray. The other aliens in the room had pressed themselves against the walls, their large eyes darting between Harold and their leader. "You will lower your weapon," Commander Gray transmitted, though Harold could sense uncertainty in the mental communication. "Our defensive systems will activate if you continue to threaten crew members." "Go ahead and activate them," Harold said calmly. "But first, let me tell you a story about defensive systems." Harold began moving slowly around the room, keeping his rifle ready but not immediately threatening. The aliens tracked his movement like prey animals watching a predator. "Back in 1968, I was stationed at Khe Sanh during the siege. The North Vietnamese had us surrounded, outnumbered us about 10 to 1. We had all kinds of defensive systems too. Barbed wire, machine gun nests, artillery support. Looked pretty impressive on paper." He paused next to one of the alien scanning devices, studying its construction. "But you know what we learned? The most advanced defensive system in the world is only as good as the people operating it. And if those people aren't prepared for someone who refuses to follow the rules, all that technology becomes useless." Harold suddenly smashed the scanning device with the butt of his rifle. The aliens flinched at the sound of breaking equipment. "Your problem, Commander, is that you've been collecting sheep, peaceful people, Scientists, families on vacation, folks who were taught that violence is never the answer. But you just picked up a wolf. Commander Gray's mental voice carried a note of what might have been desperation. Your aggression is noted. However, you are one aging human against a crew of 67. Logic dictates surrender. Harold smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Logic, that's your other problem right there. Humans don't always operate on logic, especially when someone has hurt our people. We operate on something you folks probably don't understand, which is righteous anger. Harold moved to the door of the examination room and found it sealed. He examined the mechanism briefly, then shot the control panel. The door hissed open. Stop, Commander Gray commanded mentally, with enough force that Harold felt it like a physical pressure in his head. That's a neat trick, Harold said, shaking his head to clear it. But I've had worse headaches from hangovers. Now I'm going to find those other humans. You can either help me or you can try to stop me. But I should warn you, I've been in hostile territory before. Harold stepped into the corridor and immediately more alarms began sounding. The walls pulsed with red light, and he could hear the sound of movement throughout the ship. The aliens were mobilizing, but they were clearly unprepared for this type of situation. Commander Gray and the other aliens from the examination room followed him into the corridor. Security teams are responding. You cannot reach the containment areas. We'll see about that, Harold muttered, studying the corridor layout. The ship's design was logical, but clearly not built with security in mind. The corridors were wide and straight with few defensive positions. Tell me something, Commander. In all your research on humans, did you ever study our military history? Basic tactical information was included in our cultural analysis. Basic tactical information, Harold repeated, shaking his head. That's like studying basic swimming before jumping into the ocean during a hurricane. Harold began moving down the corridor, checking corners and doorways with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done this before. The ship's layout was becoming clearer to him. It was designed for efficiency and research, not combat. Human military tactics are crude compared to our strategic capabilities, Commander Gray transmitted. Following at a safe distance, you think so? Harold asked, stopping suddenly and turning to face the aliens. Let me ask you something. How many wars have your people fought? Wars are inefficient. We resolve conflicts through negotiation and superior technology. That explains a lot, Harold said. See, humans have been fighting wars for our entire history. We've gotten very good at it. We've learned how to turn anything into a weapon, how to fight when we're outnumbered, how to win when logic says we should lose. Harold resumed walking, and as they turned a corner, they encountered the first security team. 5 aliens carrying what appeared to be energy weapons blocked the corridor ahead. Halt, one of them commanded mentally. Return to containment immediately. Harold studied the security team for a moment. They were positioned poorly, clustered together in the center of the corridor with no cover. Their weapons were sophisticated but clearly designed for stunning rather than killing. Everything about their stance and positioning suggested they had never faced serious resistance. Commander, Harold called back to Gray, are those weapons set to kill or just incapacitate? Lethal force is not necessary. The weapons will render you unconscious, that's what I thought. Harold raised his rifle. You folks might want to step aside. The security team leader raised its weapon. You will comply or face the consequences. I've been facing consequences my whole life, Harold said and fired. The rifle shot echoed through the corridor like thunder. Harold's bullet struck the lead alien's weapon, shattering it and sending fragments flying. The alien scattered, completely unprepared for the violence and noise of human weapons. Harold advanced quickly, using tactics learned in jungle warfare. He moved from cover to cover, even though the ship provided little in the way of defensive positions. The aliens' weapons fired beams of energy that left scorch marks on the walls, but they were clearly not trained marksmen. Within minutes, Harold had disabled all 5 security team members without killing any of them. He destroyed their weapons and left them stunned but alive in the corridor. Impressive, Commander Gray admitted as they continued toward the containment areas. Your tactical capabilities exceed our projections. This isn't even close to my best work, Harold replied. I'm 73 years old and fighting with equipment from the 1940s. Imagine what a squad of 20-year-old Marines with modern weapons could do to your ship. They encountered 2 more security teams on the way to the containment level. Each encounter went similarly. The aliens were simply not prepared for human military tactics, especially from someone with Harold's experience and training. As they reached the containment level, Harold could hear voices coming from the holding areas. Human voices, some crying, some arguing, some eerily silent. 31 humans, Harold said quietly. 31 people who trusted that someone would come for them even if they didn't know it. He turned to Commander Gray. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to open every cell, release every human, and provide transportation back to Earth. In return, I won't teach your crew what real human military tactics look like. Impossible. Our research protocols require... Harold interrupted by firing another shot into the ceiling. Commander, let me explain something about human nature. We have a saying, leave no one behind. It means we don't abandon our people, no matter the cost. He chambered another round. You picked up the wrong species to study, and you definitely picked up the wrong old man to threaten. The containment level stretched out before Harold like a nightmare version of a hospital ward. Dozens of cells lined both sides of a long corridor, each containing a soft blue glow that seemed to keep the occupants in a state of calm submission. Harold could see humans inside, some sitting quietly, others pacing, a few lying motionless on simple platforms that served as beds. The neural suppression field keeps subjects docile, Commander Gray explained, its mental voice carrying what might have been pride. It reduces aggressive tendencies and fear responses, making them easier to study. Harold's jaw tightened. You're drugging them. The field is not chemical. It is a direct neural manipulation that ensures cooperation and reduces stress during procedures. You're controlling their minds. Harold's voice was deadly quiet. That's worse than drugging them. Harold approached the first cell and examined the barrier. It appeared to be some kind of energy field rather than physical bars. Inside, a young woman in torn clothing sat staring at the wall with empty eyes. When Harold called out to her, she turned slowly but didn't seem to really see him. Sarah, Harold called louder. Sarah, can you hear me? The woman blinked slowly and focused on Harold with difficulty. Who are you? Are you real? I'm real, honey. I'm Harold Morrison, and I'm here to get you out. Harold turned to Commander Gray. Turn off this field, now. Impossible. Without the suppression field, the subjects become hysterical and potentially dangerous to themselves. Harold studied the energy barrier for a moment, then stepped back and shot it. The energy field flickered and died with a shower of sparks. Immediately, the woman inside became more alert, fear and confusion replacing the vacant stare. What's happening? Sarah asked, backing against the far wall. Where am I? How long have I been here? You're on an alien ship, Harold said as gently as he could while maintaining his watch on the aliens. But you're safe now. I'm going to get everyone out. Harold moved to the next cell and repeated the process. Each time he destroyed a containment field, the human inside became more aware but also more terrified. Soon the corridor was filled with the sounds of crying, shouting, and desperate questions. My God, whispered a middle-aged man in the third cell. They're real. The aliens are real. How long have we been here? Demanded a teenage boy from the fourth cell. Where's my daughter? Screamed a woman who looked to be in her 40s. They took my daughter. Harold continued methodically freeing the captives while Commander Gray and the other aliens watched with what appeared to be growing alarm. This is not advisable, Commander Gray transmitted urgently. The subjects will become unmanageable without the suppression field. Maybe that's exactly what needs to happen, Harold replied, shooting open another cell. As more humans were freed, Harold began to get a clearer picture of what had been happening. The aliens had been taking people for months, possibly years. Some of the captives had been on the ship for weeks, subjected to daily examinations and tests. Others were more recent arrivals taken just days ago. They've been experimenting on us, said Dr. James Chen, a physicist from California who had been taken while camping with his family. Medical tests, psychological evaluations, physical stress tests. Some people... He trailed off, looking sick. Some people didn't make it, Harold finished grimly. I know. By the time Harold had freed all 31 humans, the containment level was in chaos. People were crying, shouting, demanding answers, and in some cases, trying to attack the aliens with their bare hands. Harold had to use his military command voice to restore some semblance of order. Listen up, Harold shouted, and his tone cut through the noise like a knife. I know you're all scared and angry. You have every right to be. But right now we need to focus on getting out of here alive. The crowd of freed humans turned to Harold, recognizing authority and experience in his voice. My name is Harold Morrison. I'm a retired Marine, and I'm going to get all of you home safely. But I need you to listen carefully and do exactly what I say. A young man stepped forward. How do we know you're really human? How do we know this isn't another test? Before Harold could answer, Sarah spoke up. Look at him. Really look. He's got scars, calluses on his hands, wrinkles around his eyes from squinting in the sun. He moves like someone who's been in combat. The aliens all look the same, move the same. He's real. Harold nodded approvingly. Good observation. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk out of here together, get to their shuttle bay and commandeer a ship. Anyone here know anything about flying? Dr. Chen raised his hand. I'm a physicist. I might be able to figure out their propulsion systems. Good. Anyone else with technical skills? Several more people spoke up. Harold began organizing them like a military unit, assigning roles and responsibilities. The freed humans responded to his leadership, their panic gradually being replaced by purpose. Commander Gray watched this transformation with what appeared to be fascination. Remarkable. The subjects have organized themselves into a functional group within minutes. This behavior was not predicted in our models. That's because your models are based on individuals in isolation, Harold explained. Humans are pack animals, Commander. We're stronger together than apart. When you separate us, we're vulnerable. When you bring us together, especially under threat, we become dangerous. Harold turned to address the group. All right, people. We're going to move as a unit. Stay together, stay quiet, and follow my lead. If shooting starts, hit the deck and let me handle it. What about them? Asked a woman pointing at the aliens. Harold looked at Commander Gray and the other aliens. They're coming with us. As insurance. We will not cooperate in our own capture, Commander Gray transmitted. Harold smiled coldly. Commander, you've been studying humans for 300 years, but you missed the most important lesson. When you threaten our families, our friends, our people, we stop being civilized. We become something much older and much more dangerous. Harold chambered another round in his rifle. You killed 12 humans. You've tortured and traumatized 31 more. Right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and a mob of very angry people who have been through hell because of you. Harold gestured to the freed humans, many of whom were looking at the aliens with expressions of raw hatred and fury. So here's your choice, Commander. You can help us get home safely, or you can deal with 31 humans who have nothing left to lose and some very creative ideas about revenge. Commander Gray looked at the crowd of freed humans, many of whom were advancing slowly toward the aliens despite Harold's presence. The aliens' large black eyes seemed to register real fear for the first time. We will cooperate, Commander Gray transmitted weakly. Smart choice, Harold said. Now let's go find your shuttle bay. The journey to the shuttle bay became a tense parade through the alien ship's corridors. Harold led the group with military precision, while the 31 freed humans followed in a disciplined formation that would have impressed any drill sergeant. The aliens, including Commander Gray, were surrounded in the center of the group, effectively prisoners of their former captives. As they moved through the ship, more alien crew members appeared, but they kept their distance. Word had apparently spread about the human who had single-handedly taken control of an entire section of their vessel. I'm detecting additional crew members converging on our position, Dr. Chen reported quietly to Harold. He had fashioned a crude translator for one of the alien communication devices and was monitoring their internal communications. How many? Harold asked without breaking stride. Looks like about 20 coming from multiple directions. They're setting up some kind of containment protocol. Harold nodded grimly. They're trying to box us in. Classic pincer movement. He turned to address the group. Listen up, everyone. We're about to have company. When I give the word, I want everyone except Dr. Chen and the physics students to get down and stay down. Let me handle the shooting. A middle-aged woman named Rebecca, who had identified herself as a former Army medic, moved up beside Harold. I can help. I've been in combat zones before. Harold assessed her quickly. Despite weeks of captivity, she moved with military bearing and kept her eyes constantly scanning for threats. What's your background? Army medic, 2 tours in Afghanistan. I know how to handle myself in a firefight. Good. Stay close and watch our 6. Harold checked his rifle, counting his remaining ammunition. He had enough for maybe 15 more shots, assuming he didn't miss. Against potentially dozens of aliens, those shots would have to count. The ship's corridor opened into a larger junction area with multiple passages branching off in different directions. Harold immediately recognized it as a tactical nightmare. Too many angles of attack, too little cover, and nowhere to retreat. "This is where they'll hit us," Harold muttered. "Commander Gray, how much further to the shuttle bay?" 200 meters through the central corridor," Commander Gray replied, though Harold could sense reluctance in the mental communication. "And I suppose that corridor is a nice straight shot with no cover and perfect firing positions for your people?" Commander Gray's silence was answer enough. Harold studied the junction for a moment, then turned to Dr. Chen. "What did you learn about their weapons from monitoring those communications?" "They're energy-based, designed for incapacitation rather than killing. But they can be overcharged for lethal settings. The good news is they seem to have limited power cells and need to recharge between shots. Recharge time? Approximately 3 seconds." Harold smiled grimly. 3 seconds. In a firefight, that's an eternity. He turned to the group. "Here's what we're going to do. It's called a fighting withdrawal, and it's not pretty, but it'll get us out of here alive." Harold quickly outlined his plan. The group would move through the junction in stages, with Harold and Rebecca providing covering fire, while the others advanced to the next position. The aliens in their custody would shield them from their own people's weapons, and Dr. Chen would monitor communications to warn of flanking attempts. "What if they don't care about hitting their own people?" asked Tom, a construction worker from Ohio. "Then we'll learn something important about their culture," Harold replied. "But I don't think that's likely. They've been too careful with us so far to be casual about casualties." As they prepared to move, the alien security forces finally revealed themselves. Energy weapons began firing from multiple corridors, filling the air with crackling bolts of blue light. The shots were clearly aimed to incapacitate rather than kill, but Harold noticed they were very careful not to fire in the direction of their own crew members. "Called it," Harold muttered, then shouted, "Move!" The next few minutes were controlled chaos. Harold's military training took over completely as he moved the group through the junction with textbook precision. His rifle cracked repeatedly, each shot carefully aimed to disable alien weapons rather than kill their wielders. Rebecca proved to be exactly as competent as she had claimed, providing accurate covering fire with a captured alien weapon. The freed humans moved with surprising discipline, following Harold's orders without question and protecting each other instinctively. Several times, civilians without military training threw themselves in front of alien weapons fire to protect children or elderly members of the group. "Incredible," Commander Gray transmitted to Harold during a brief lull in the fighting. "Your species coordinates naturally under stress. Our behavioral models predicted panic and individual flight responses. Your models were based on studying people in isolation," Harold replied while reloading. "Humans are different when we're together. We become something greater than the sum of our parts." The fighting continued as they advanced toward the shuttle bay. Harold's ammunition ran dangerously low, but the aliens seemed reluctant to press their attack aggressively. They had clearly never faced organized human resistance before. Finally, they reached the entrance to the shuttle bay. It was sealed with a massive door that required alien biometric authorization to open. "Open it," Harold ordered Commander Gray. "I cannot. Shuttle bay access requires authorization from the ship commander, not research command." Harold studied the door mechanism. It was sophisticated, probably beyond his ability to force open with conventional means. He turned to Dr. Chen. "Any ideas?" Dr. Chen was already examining the control panel. "Maybe. If I can access their power distribution system, I might be able to create a feedback loop that forces the door to open." While Dr. Chen worked on the door, Harold organized the group's defenses. The aliens had fallen back but hadn't given up. They were regrouping for another assault. "Harold," Rebecca called softly, "we've got movement in all directions." "They're surrounding us," Harold nodded grimly. This was it. They were trapped with their backs to the shuttle bay door, facing overwhelming numbers with almost no ammunition left. "Sir," said Tom, the construction worker, "what do we do now?" Harold looked around at the 31 faces looking to him for leadership. These people had been through hell, but they weren't giving up. They were ready to fight to the end. "Now," Harold said quietly, "we show them what humans do when we're cornered." Suddenly, Dr. Chen's work paid off. The shuttle bay door began to open with a grinding mechanical sound. Beyond it lay a vast chamber filled with sleek alien spacecraft. Got it, Dr. Chen shouted. The door is open! But their celebration was short-lived. As the door opened fully, they found themselves facing not just the shuttle bay, but another group of aliens waiting inside. These were different from the others. Larger, more heavily armed, and clearly military rather than scientific personnel. Standing in front of them was an alien significantly larger than Commander Gray, with additional markings that suggested high rank. So, the new alien transmitted with considerably more mental force than Commander Gray had been able to muster. You are the human who has been causing disruption to our research vessel. Harold stepped forward, his empty rifle still held ready. I'm the human who's been cleaning up your mess. And you are? I am Ship Commander Zark 9. You will surrender immediately, or we will be forced to use lethal force. Harold looked around at the dozens of armed aliens surrounding them, then back at the ship commander. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, despite having no ammunition left, despite facing technology far beyond anything Earth had developed, Harold Morrison smiled. Commander, Harold said calmly, I think it's time you learned the most important thing about humanity, which is, we're really bad at surrendering. Ship Commander Zark 9 regarded Harold with what appeared to be curiosity rather than anger. The alien was indeed larger than the others, with additional appendages that suggested either evolutionary advantages or technological enhancements. Its mental communication carried an authority that made even Commander Gray seem subservient. You claim humans are poor at surrendering, Ship Commander Zark 9 transmitted. Yet you are surrounded, outgunned, and have no apparent means of escape. Logic dictates capitulation. Harold shifted his stance slightly, positioning himself to shield as many of the freed humans as possible. Logic is overrated, Commander. Sometimes the most logical thing to do is the most illogical thing your enemy expects. Dr. Chen moved closer to Harold. The shuttle bay has 17 vessels, he whispered. Most appear to be short-range transports, but there are 3 larger ships that might be capable of interstellar travel. Harold nodded almost imperceptibly. Any idea how to fly them? The control systems appear to be primarily mental interface-based. If we could capture one of their pilots, you two are communicating, Ship Commander Zark 9 observed. This is not permitted during surrender negotiations. We're not surrendering, Harold replied calmly. We're having a conversation about the weather. The alien commander seemed genuinely puzzled. Weather patterns are not relevant to your current situation. That's another thing your research missed about humans, Harold said, taking a small step forward. We make jokes when we're scared. It's how we cope with impossible situations. Harold's movement caused several of the alien guards to raise their weapons, but Ship Commander Zark 9 gestured for them to hold position. Your behavior is inconsistent with our predictive models, the ship commander admitted. You display no fear response despite facing certain death. You make irrelevant verbal communications. You organize other humans into effective units despite having no apparent authority structure. What did your models predict? Harold asked, genuinely curious. Individual flight responses, panic, attempts to negotiate for personal survival at the expense of group welfare, eventual psychological breakdown leading to compliance. Harold chuckled, causing several aliens to step backward. Commander, did your research teams ever study human military history? Basic tactical information was reviewed. Basic, Harold repeated. Let me guess. You focused on our weapons technology, our strategic capabilities, maybe some famous battles? Correct. But you didn't study the most important part. You didn't study why we fight. Harold gestured to the group of freed humans behind him. These people aren't soldiers. They're teachers, scientists, construction workers, parents. But right now they're ready to die fighting, rather than go back to your examination tables. Do you know why? Ship Commander Zark 9's large eyes focused intently on Harold. Explain. Because humans have something your species apparently doesn't understand. We have a concept called sacrifice. When our people are threatened, we don't calculate odds or weigh logical outcomes. We fight, even when we can't win. Harold's voice carried across the shuttle bay, reaching not just the aliens but the humans behind him. We fight because fighting is better than surrender. We fight because someone has to stand up and say no more. We fight because that's what separates civilization from chaos. Your fighting will accomplish nothing, Ship Commander Zark 9 replied. You will die and we will continue our research with the remaining specimens. Will you? Harold asked. Let me ask you something, Commander. How many other ships like this one are out there, collecting specimens from different species? Research Fleet 7000 consists of 47 vessels conducting xenobiological studies across this galactic sector. And how many of those vessels have faced organized resistance? There was a pause. Resistance has been minimal across all survey operations. Until now, Harold said quietly. But here's the thing about humans, Commander. We talk, we share information, we learn from each other's experiences. Harold's smile became predatory. Right now, thanks to Dr. Chen's work on your communication systems, everything that's happened here is being broadcast to your entire fleet. Every ship, every research station, every alien monitoring station is watching this conversation. Ship Commander Zark 9's mental communication suddenly carried alarm. That is not possible. Our communication systems are encrypted. Dr. Chen stepped forward. Actually, they're not. Your species apparently never developed the concept of information warfare. Your communication protocols assume all users are cooperative. It took me about 10 minutes to access your entire network. You're lying, am I? Harold asked. Think about it, Commander. What happens when the other ships in your fleet try to collect human specimens? And those humans know exactly what to expect. What happens when they know your weapons are designed not to kill? When they know your containment systems can be defeated with primitive projectile weapons? When they know your crew has never faced real combat? The silence in the shuttle bay was deafening. Harold could see the implications dawning on the aliens around him. But here's the really interesting part, Harold continued. We're not just broadcasting to your fleet. Dr. Chen, tell the commander about the other signal you sent. Dr. Chen nodded grimly. I managed to access your navigation database and extract the location of this ship. That information, along with everything we've learned about your technology and tactics, has been transmitted to Earth using your own communication array. Ship Commander Zark 9's mental communication became a roar of anger. Impossible. Our transmission systems require cooperative users who follow established protocols, Dr. Chen interrupted. But humans specialize in making technology do things it wasn't designed to do. Harold watched as the implications continued to sink in among the aliens. So here's the situation, Commander. You can kill us, but it won't matter. The damage is done. Every government on Earth now knows you exist. They know your location. They know your capabilities and your weaknesses. Harold paused, letting that information settle. And they know you've been kidnapping and killing their people. The shuttle bay erupted in panicked alien communication. Harold could feel the mental chatter like a buzzing in his head as the aliens realized the scope of what had happened. You have doomed your own species, Ship Commander Zark 9 transmitted, though the mental voice now carried something that might have been desperation. When Earth develops space travel capabilities, they will come for us. Probably, Harold agreed. But here's the thing you still don't understand about humans. We don't just fight for ourselves. We fight for justice. We fight to protect others from experiencing what we've experienced. Harold gestured to the freed humans. Every person you see here represents hundreds of family members and friends who are now going to demand answers. You've created 31 personal vendettas, multiplied by everyone who cares about them. But, Harold continued, his voice becoming gentler, humans also understand mercy. Ship Commander Zark 9's attention focused completely on Harold. Explain. You let us go, all of us. You return every human you've taken. You cease all abduction operations in human space. And maybe, when we do develop the technology to reach you, we'll be coming as explorers instead of conquerors. Harold shouldered his empty rifle. Because here's the final lesson about humanity, Commander. We can be your greatest enemy, or your greatest ally. The choice is yours. The shuttle bay remained eerily quiet for several long moments as Ship Commander Zark 9 processed Harold's words. The other aliens waited, their large eyes darting between their commander and the group of humans who had somehow turned from specimens into a genuine threat. Finally, Ship Commander Zark 9 transmitted a response that carried weary resignation. You present us with an unprecedented situation. Our protocols have no provisions for this scenario. Maybe it's time to write new protocols, Harold suggested, ones that don't involve kidnapping and murdering innocent people. Ship Commander Zark 9 turned to Commander Gray. Confirm the communication breaches. Have our operations been compromised as the humans claim? Commander Gray's mental response was barely audible. Confirmed. All fleet vessels are reporting communication intrusions. Earth monitoring stations are responding with unprecedented activity levels. The humans they have changed the parameters of our entire mission. And the other ships? How are they responding to this information? Research Vessel 7703 reports their current human specimens have become unmanageable. Vessel 7751 reports their subjects have somehow disabled their containment systems, using information broadcast from this ship. Multiple vessels are requesting immediate evacuation protocols. Harold nodded grimly. It's happening, isn't it? Every human you've captured across your entire fleet is now fighting back because they know it's possible. Ship Commander Zark 9 was quiet for another long moment. When it finally spoke, its mental voice carried what might have been respect. You have accomplished something remarkable, Harold Morrison. You have single-handedly altered the balance of power between our species. Our research indicates this should not have been possible. Your research was flawed, Harold replied. You studied humans as individuals. You never understood what we become when we work together. Dr. Chen stepped forward. Commander, I've been monitoring your fleet communications. You're losing control of your entire operation, aren't you? It's not just the humans fighting back. Your own crews are starting to question the ethics of what they've been doing. Ship Commander Zark 9's admission was reluctant. Some crew members have expressed concerns about the continuation of our research methods. Harold looked around the shuttle bay, noting how many of the alien guards had lowered their weapons. Your people aren't killers, are they? They're scientists, explorers, researchers. They got into this to learn about the universe, not to torture and murder sentient beings. Our intentions were purely scientific. Your intentions don't matter, Harold interrupted firmly. What matters is what you did. You took people from their families. You experimented on them. You killed 12 human beings. No scientific purpose justifies that. Rebecca, the former Army medic, spoke up. We've seen the examination rooms. We've seen the equipment designed to cause pain and measure suffering. That's not science. That's sadism. The freed humans began sharing their experiences, and Harold could see the impact their words were having on the alien crew. These beings clearly had never heard first-hand accounts of what their research actually meant to the subjects. I have children, said Maria, a teacher from New Mexico. When you took me, my 6-year-old daughter watched through the window. She'll never feel safe again because of what you did. I was supposed to get married next month, added Tom, the construction worker. My fiancé probably thinks I'm dead. You destroyed lives, not just the people you took, but everyone who cares about them. Ship Commander Zark 9's mental communication became increasingly distressed as more humans shared their stories. We did not consider the broader implications of our collection methods. That's the problem, Harold said. You reduced us to specimens, data points, test subjects. You forgot we're people with lives, families, dreams, and fears just like you. Harold walked closer to Ship Commander Zark 9, noting that the alien guards made no move to stop him. But here's what you need to understand. Despite everything you've done to us, we're still willing to show you mercy. That's also part of human nature. What do you propose? Harold looked back at the group of freed humans, seeing nods of agreement from faces that had endured weeks of captivity and experimentation. First, you release all human captives across your entire fleet. All of them, immediately, no exceptions. Second, you provide transportation back to Earth for everyone. Safe passage, no tricks, no additional experiments. Third, you share your medical technology with us, not as payment, but as a gesture of good faith. Help us heal the damage you've caused. And fourth, Harold's voice became steel again. You never take another human being without their informed consent. If you want to study us, ask. You might be surprised how many people would volunteer. Ship Commander Zark 9 processed these demands. And in return? In return, when we reach the stars, we'll remember that you chose to do the right thing. We'll remember that when given the choice between continuing to harm us and helping us heal, you chose to help. Harold paused, then continued more softly. Humans have long memories, Commander. We remember our enemies, but we also remember our friends. The shuttle bay filled with rapid alien communications as Ship Commander Zark 9 consulted with its crew and the other vessels in the fleet. Harold could sense the debate raging among them. Centuries of protocol and research priorities being weighed against this new understanding of what their actions had meant to their subjects. Finally, Ship Commander Zark 9 transmitted its decision. Your terms are acceptable. We will implement immediate release protocols for all human subjects across the fleet. Transportation will be provided. Medical assistance will be offered. The shuttle bay erupted in cheers and crying from the freed humans. Several people hugged Harold. Others collapsed in relief, and many simply stood in stunned disbelief that they were actually going home. But Harold wasn't done. There's one more thing, Commander. Specify. I want your promise that you'll share what you've learned here with other species. Not just the scientific data, but the lesson about treating other sentient beings with respect and dignity. Ship Commander Zark 9's response carried something new. What might have been humility. That knowledge will be shared. Perhaps other research fleets will benefit from understanding the true nature of the species they encounter. Over the next several hours, Harold watched as the aliens organized the return of all human captives. Ships from across the fleet converged on Earth, delivering people who had been missing for days, weeks, or months back to their families and lives. As they prepared to depart, Ship Commander Zark 9 approached Harold one final time. Harold Morrison, you have fundamentally altered our understanding of your species. Our research will be updated to reflect the reality that humans are not specimens to be collected, but people to be respected. Harold nodded. That's all we ever wanted, Commander. To be treated like people. One final question, the alien commander transmitted. When your species develops interstellar travel, will you seek revenge for what we have done? Harold looked out through the shuttle bay at the blue marble of Earth growing larger ahead of them. Commander, that depends entirely on what kind of neighbors you choose to be. 3 weeks later, Harold was back in his garden, watering his tomato plants and throwing a ball for Buster. The media attention had been intense but was finally dying down. The government debriefings were complete. The other freed humans were slowly returning to their normal lives, though all of them had been forever changed by their experiences. Harold looked up at the evening sky, wondering if the aliens were out there somewhere, treating other species with the respect they had learned to show humanity. He hoped so. The universe was big enough for all of them, as long as everyone remembered the simple truth he had tried to teach Ship Commander Zark 9. Every sentient being, no matter how different, deserved to be treated with dignity. That night, Harold slept peacefully in his own bed, secure in the knowledge that he had done what Marines do best. He had left no one behind.